Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're in the world. Welcome to Explain It Live. My name is Lionel Miranda, and right now we are going to talk about the event I went to this weekend. It was called the Garden City Slaughter, and I want to thank all the organizers there for doing such a tremendous job, and for Josh judging the event. He did a great job as well. It was a lot of fun. I don't go to a lot of events. A little bit difficult currently with my life generally. Used to go to quite a few, but the combination of the shop, this channel, my kids, wife, and all that, it's tough for me to attend as many events as I would like. But I really want to go out of my way to see if I can make it out to this one. And as it just so happened, it all lined up. So that was pretty cool. In anticipation for this event, I was practicing with a Maggotkin list. I say a Maggotkin list because it was not the list I went with in the end. Now, for those of you that don't know me all that well, I have a tendency to make last minute changes when I go to events. I don't know why, and I do. Yeah, like for instance, this list that I went with, I only had practiced 2 games with it. I painted or finished painting it in the last, 4 or 5 days before the event. So I was rush painting it. It is painted, sort of, not really, but it was enough to qualify for being painted for the event because it was a GT level event and everything had to be done. So why do I do this to myself? Why do I practice with one list and then completely change things just a few moments before the actual event? I love the thrill of it. I don't know what it is, but I get off on flying by the seat of my pants. It's just a thing I do, and I've just learned to accept it. But without further ado, what is the actual list I went with? Gaio, if you could put up list 1, please. Gaio's on the wheels of steel again in the back room. My man, thank you very much for helping me out. So what's the list? It is an LOA or Lord of Affliction spam list. This is not a list I created. This is definitely a list that's been floating around the community for quite a bit. I heard about it a month ago, 2 months ago, give or take. Someone brought it to Worlds, to my understanding, as well. I would love to give a shout out to the person who actually created it. I tried to track that down. I couldn't find anyone that knew exactly who had created that list. To you, unknown person, phenomenal idea. When I just sat down, I was excited about playing it myself. I tried to resist because I'm not a giant fan of spam lists, but that's currently what the meta is. But this list with 10 Lords of Afflictions and 2 Harbingers is 2,000 points on the nose. I absolutely love it. To the point. So I went, what the heck? I have the models. As it just so happens, all my flies are converted. Because Nurgle is a very personal thing, or I should say, how would you say, individualistic thing. Even the model range is all about diversity. I didn't like all my flies being the same, so I converted each and every one of them quite a while ago, and as it so happens, it's going to pay dividends now because, what is a Lord of Afflictions really? Just a dude on a fly, right? So now that they all look different, it looks really, really cool. So there you go. All right, so the list. It is a 2,000 point list on the button. It is a 12 drop list and it has 5 regiments. Now, first thing I did was put a fly in each of the 5. If you're busting into auxiliaries, Lionel, why in the heck would you have regiments? 2 reasons. 1, by filling all the regiments, no one's going to have more regiments than me, which means I deny the reroll on priority. That's primarily why I did it. The other, of course, big benefit, if I could remember it, and I didn't always, if you have more regiments than your opponent, you get the reroll priority. And it did come in clutch once or twice when I remembered it. But the big deal is all those guys that planned their lists around the 5 regiment thing, I just deny that from them. So that's why I did it. So it's 5 regiments and 7 auxiliaries, totaling 12. I, of course, took the benedictions of sickness, which is the prayer lore from the Scourge of Guy Ran. Holy cow, am I going to miss that prayer lore when it disappears? It's a seasonal thing for those of you joining us for the very first time and don't know what the heck I'm talking about. At the time of this recording, GW posted a whole bunch of updates for all the armies in the game, and they came out with all sorts of really neat, cool rules. And one of the coolest things they came out for Nurgle is the prayer lore. Why was it the coolest? Because we didn't have any. We had a priest, but no prayer lore to go with them. So that priest wasn't very good. Right up until, of course, they got that prayer lore, and then all of a sudden the Harbinger was one of the coolest models you could have in your collection. And I got 2 in this list. All right, so battle tactics. What did I go with? I went for more or less tried and true. Not gonna lie, this is where I didn't put in as much thought as I wished I had. I had practiced with other Nurgle lists, and I just defaulted to this. I went with Intercept and Recover, and that's the 3 treasures. Every time you kill a unit that is carrying that treasure, you score 5 points. And then I went with Master of the Paths. And Master of the Paths unlocks the very first one. The affray is kill a hero, and then off you go. It's a thing that I found not very difficult to do previously, especially any list that had any shooting, of course. I'm no longer referring to Maggotkin, but even some of my Maggotkin lists actually did use Rotmire. I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but the Rotmire I find to be very, very good with Rodigus. And I had lists that were running 20 to 30 of those little guys, and they really made that additional reach they had made it much easier to do both of those things. In any case, I digress. This list is what I took for this event. I had my reasons. They're relatively mobile. All the flies more or less move 8 inches. Not more or less, they move 8 inches. They can't run in charge or anything like that. They got none of those shenanigans, but 8 inches ain't too bad. All right, so those are battle tactics. The regiments, or I should say enhancements, the regiments are all LOAs and 2 Harbingers. Nothing more really to discuss there. With this list, I took the formation of Affliction Cyst. For those of you that might not know what that means, it's at the beginning of the game on deployment, I get to pick up 2 units of flies and deploy them anywhere on the table 9 inches away from my enemy. I use this primarily to dictate tempo. Now, how did I do this? The one I would teleport was the Lord of Affliction with the Living Plague. Gaio, if you could go on our turntable, we got a Lord of Affliction with the Living Plague. This is the one conversion I did quite a while ago. For those of you looking at the model currently right now, this is not a model you can buy, folks. This is pretty heavily converted. The fly actually is a 3D print for a guy who's actually been shut down, probably because of, well, you know, licensing and IP requirements. The wings are plastic on it, the legs are plastic, and the guy on top is actually a Lord of Plagues? No, it's the other one, Blight Lord. Lord of Blights. I got there. Is a Lord of Blights, and I kit bash this together. This is my alpha Lord of Afflictions, and what do I mean by that? If you hold on to the turntable, I'll try and put this kind of close. He's bigger. And I always, I follow the whole GW thing. Obviously, the bigger you are, the more leadership qualities you have. So in any case, I made this guy my general. I say this in quotations because all of them, he's not any better than anybody else, but he is carrying the enhancement of Living Plague. What is that? Basically what that means is when this guy charges, he deposits a disease counter on the unit that he charged. And if you don't know how disease works, at the end step, I have the option of allocating a disease to a unit that is within combat, within my units across the table, or I could take a unit that has a disease on it and I can spread it. And then every enemy unit within 3 inches of the unit that has a disease gains a disease counter. And then after one of those 2 things happen, I can do bad D3 mortal wounds to those units. So by giving him living plague, I was able to basically threaten depositing disease and then spreading disease across the ranks. Pretty much upon describing that to my opponents and then deep striking it, not too aggressively, but definitely taking advantage of it so that I wouldn't have to do a ridiculous charge. Most of my opponents wanted to go first, and that was generally speaking the point. I used the psychological impact of the choice, the enhancement, to manipulate my opponent's choices in the game. It's what I refer to as playing above the table. You're playing your opponent. You're not just playing the game itself. I found that to be pretty useful. It was a toss-up. I don't know if Taliban is still the better choice. It definitely outputs more. Taliban adds to mortal wounds from turns 2 forward when you do your disease. And I'm telling you, Taliban is by far the default choice almost always. But because I was taking such a densely fly list, I just really wanted to test it out. I wasn't displeased with the results. I thought it was actually pretty cool. And that is how I used it. I used it to manipulate my opponent's choice. Because obviously, every single opponent outdropped me. I am 12 drops. So I never had the choice on who had priority round 1. Okay. So what else do we need to know? Oh yeah, the other choice I made, I'll remove this guy right here. I'll place this guy right over here. Is also Rustfang. I had an artifact. I stuck it on this guy. He moves relatively quick, 8 inches. This is as fast as flies. And basically, what is Rustfang? Rustfang is, at the beginning of combat, I could pick an enemy hero within combat range, so within 3 inches, and use the Rustfang ability. And it's a once per game ability. I could permanently decrease his armor for the rest of the game. Pretty cool. I figured I'd send him in as a little suicide guy if I really needed to, for clutch reasons more or less. So I was pretty satisfied. I had taken Rustfang in many of my other lists, and I was like, I'm gonna take it in this list. Why not? Again, I did go with defaults, tested it out in my shop, played a couple of games. I'm like, yeah, I'm good to go. Let's do this. All right, so we're at the event, and we go to game 1. So game 1, Guy, if we could bring the picture of that beautiful man up on the screen, I'm playing versus Cities of Sigmar. Now, Cities of Sigmar did receive a nerf in both rules and points, made it, I'm going to say, a lot more fair. But I'm going to tell you straight up, that army is still very, very good. Now, my man Steven took 3 cannons. He had 2 blobs of cavalry, 2 10-mans, fully reinforced cavalier units, and he took the new SOG versions of both. And that's the one where they roll a die to see whether they're charging. Why is that important? When they count as charging, their weapons increase in damage because they're charging at the moment. So they get +1 damage on their weapons, which is pretty cool. So that was my very first game. Steven, absolutely tremendous guy, really good player. I had played versus Cities before, and I was pretty sure I knew what his opening moves were going to be. Steven did go first, especially after informing him of the fact if I had charged, I was going to spread disease. And of course, I don't know if any of you have seen most cities of Sigmar armies. They love to castle. So, man, that disease was going to do some work. And he was like, no, I'm going to go first. It's all right. That's all good. So he got to move. Cities happens to be one of the fastest armies in the game. Why is that? Well, they get to do these really cool little commands that give them an extra 3 inches or so of movement. So this cav got across the table real fast. Both units of cav smashed into my flies. Now, that's when Steven encountered something he wasn't necessarily ready for. Although he comprehended the rules because I didn't gotcha him with anything. The flies, or the Lord of Afflictions specifically, at the start of every combat, they have a combat ability. They can pick 3 targets in combat and do bad D3 mortal wounds right off the bat. Because it's not an army ability, it actually happens with each fly. So if you are smacking into 3 flies, it's bad D3, 3D3 bad mortal wounds, and then the fight begins. So he was going in there to tie up all my flies, but the flies just punched like animals. These guys are all pretty darn good in combat. The riders have 4 attacks, 3s, neg 1, 2 flat damage, and the flies underneath them have 6 attacks, 4s, 3s, 0 rend, 1 flat damage, unless they're charging. If they charge, they gain a rend themselves through an ability that looks at the Lord of Change only. It would look at other Puscoils, but none of these guys are Puscoils. They don't have that keyword. But under that ability, it says himself and 2 other units of Puscoils. So each one of them gets to leverage that ability. Long story short, I basically dissolved both units of cavalry and then proceeded to move aggressively toward his units. His core was his last line of defense, and those little tough buggers of output machines that they are still very good themselves. And this is where I was encountering and starting to realize my mistake. I didn't really score my battle tactics, which is intercept and master the path, till like rounds 4 and 5. There was a moment where I scored intercept, picked up 2 units, and couldn't score the other one because I just didn't have enough time. And in the end, I won that round, but by the skin of my teeth. And I'll explain obviously when we dive into what I learned, but I just eked out a win. I think I won by 3 points only, 56 to 53 against Steven. It was a great game. He played very, very well. I think if we were to do that rematch again, he'd probably play very differently. His cannons, he didn't hit above average on the cannons, but oh my goodness, every time that guy did damage to me, he would max out. Each cannon was just doling out 5 damage every single time. It was absolutely bonkers. Cannons are very good still. I was just taken aback. I was taken aback at how good it was. All right, so that was what? That was round 1. And we then head into round 2. All right. So I started sensing I had made a couple of errors. And round 2, or game 2, really showed me the error of my ways. All right, so round 2 was Night Hunt. I was playing the lovely Francesco. And Francesco, sorry. Both my first round and second round were people I didn't know that well or at all and have never played. So that is always thrilling. Now, why is that thrilling? Is like you're at an event. Of course, you're gonna play people you don't know. This was a local event. I know most people in the area. Been in business for a while. So to me, it's always thrilling playing someone I don't know, is basically what it boils down to. Love doing it. Love competitive play, and I love the fact that both of these gentlemen were were absolutely fantastic at the game. Long story short, Francesco, that boss of a human being. Gosh darn it, you're probably already figuring out where this goes. But before I get to that punchline, let's talk about the game in general. We were playing, oh gosh, what were we playing? Let's go look at the notes here for a second. We were playing Passing Seasons. Now, there are 2 missions that my list does not like. And if you haven't already figured it out, Passing Seasons is one of them. I hate the missions that have the objectives in the corner, nothing in the middle. Why is that? Although I move quick-ish, I am not the fastest army. 8 inches is not crazy quick. It sure as heck ain't 4 inches, which is what typically I'm working with as a Maggotkin player. But 8 isn't the fastest. Most cav average in the game is 10. So moving 8 is quite brutal. But it's quick-ish enough, but not quick-ish enough to compete in that type of mission, which is the corners. So exasperate that by the use of the ability to teleport. And oh man, I could spin around in circles trying to react. So my main goal was to squat on 3 of the objectives and then prevent him from scoring much on primary. Now, the problem with that strategy was Nighthawk have this ability that they subtract from your OC whatever the round of the game you're in. So often my flies, instead of being at an OC of 2, were only on an OC of 1. So I couldn't really deny primary as often as I would have hoped. And that was a big problem. Why? Francesco had held me to 0 points on my battle tactics, simply by allocating the intercepts toward his 3 heroes in his back lines. And of course, ghosts are a horde army, and those are all support heroes, so I was never able to get at him. And then of course, by his heroes not engaging me, I never could get Master the Paths either. Ugh, absolutely brutal. 0 battle tactics. Francesco played very, very well. In the end, it came down to him having to scoop up an objective to win the game in his last possible move. And you must be scratching your head going, how could that possibly be? You just said he scored all his battle tactics, he was doing okay, and he only squeaked out? Yeah, I had lost 1 model in that whole entire game. Basically, everything that came at me, I smashed into the ground and eliminated. But he scraped and scratched and scraped, and because he had last turn, and because of that incredible ability to reduce my OC by the round I was in, he teleported and then charged, made the charge, it is what it is, and scooped up the objective from underneath me, beating me by 5 points. Basically, 1 battle tactic. What a game. I gotta say, I think this is probably one of the funniest games I was ever participating in. I didn't feel beat at all. I was like, I'm on the objective. I've lost 1 whole entire model this whole entire game. Round 5, 1 model. That was all I lost. And this man, with his ghosts, took me out and beat me by 5 points. Absolutely fantastic game. I shook his hand. Francesco, good on you. So he beat me 45-40 on that. On top of that, Passing Seasons didn't do me any favors either. I had to stretch out. He was able to teleport and move, and his army moves just as fast as I do. So it was a tough battle. Let's go to chat for 1 sec. Pause. Very happy I didn't play against your list. Who's this? Oh, buddy, I wanted to play you. I'm not gonna lie. I was down to play KO. Yeah, I was down to play KO. One of the big strengths of this list is that it is 12 individual units. That actually adds to the durability of the list. So you either have to overcommit to models, because 100% KO, if they want a thing dead, they will kill it. But one at a time wasn't gonna do the trick, especially if I got in there with disease. And obviously Connor knew that. It's too bad we didn't see each other, Connor, but congratulations. I believe my man won the event, took it home for, wait a second, Newmarket, right? That's where you were from. And it was Enter the Battlefield. I knew that. Enter the Battlefield, so congratulations to that crew from that shop. A really good group of guys. Connor's a very good player, playing a very good army. I can't say anything about Yuri, although I played a good army, I guess. Not a very good player, though. I want to shout out to Josh Akins. Get to the part where I what? Tell people you should have listened to me. Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. I mean, you're not wrong, but get out of here. Okay, so round 1, I struggled, eked out a win. Round 2, I struggled, got a loss. Okay, so batting 500. That ain't too bad. First day ain't over yet, though. We go into game round 3. All right, so 3. I go into Mr. Simeon. Now, Simeon's popped out in this channel before. He plays in the shop when he can. He doesn't live super close to here, but he enjoys the shop, and I enjoy his company. And he was playing his Blades of Corn, and we battled mano a mano. My crusading, and that's how I envision my Maggotkin army of all flags. These are like crusading knights on a holy quest for Papa Nurgle against his Blades of Corn. This was a little bit more streamlined of a battle, not an enormous amount of tricks, although they got some really neat stuff with their surge moves and what have you. This was more linear. It was more about mixing it up, and he had done a really good job killing flies. He had tied for killing the most flies up to that point. I think he killed 6 out of my 10. In the end, push comes to shove. I did eke out a win there as well. Again, my battle tactic choices. I had just eked out a win. I think it was 47 to 42. So it was a super close. I won by basically a battle tactic. And yeah, it was a great game. Simeon's an awesome guy. And there it is. So first day, 2-1, not too shabby. I knew day 2 was going to be very, very different. At day 2, if you're doing all right, and I was doing all right, I was going to get into something a lot more serious. Blades of Corn, Simeon will say this immediately. He was there to rock and have a good time. Still did well enough that we encountered each other, so good for him. But game 2 was, or I should say day 2 was going to be a very, very different story. All right, so day 2, what do I meet? The dreaded Daughters of Cain. I don't know how many of you have encountered this army, but to say that this army is borderline unfair would be an understatement. The Scourge of Iran scrolls that they got is absolutely bonkers. Whoever designed this was an absolutely massive fan of this army, and if the army had a weakness, he was like, yeah, you know what? Let's give him a rule to cover that. Yeah, it was great. It was great. This was very stressful. Daughters of Cain, it's the classic big witch rush. Carthuza, of course, was in it. And then, of course, cauldrons and what have you. It was going to be a tough matchup. If they got off Mind Razor, I was going to be in trouble. What the heck is Mind Razor? It basically buffs a unit, gives it an additional rend and additional damage. I believe one of those is based on charges. I can't remember. What it means, though, it turns a unit, a little pocket-sized unit of witches, into a nuclear bomb. Pretty much, no matter how tough my guys were, if they were going to go into, if a fully amped up unit of witches was going to contact even 2 flies, they could have divided the attacks and just killed them both. It's just such a crazy amount of attacks. At Ren 2, it really pushes it to epic levels. because they gain a rend when they charge, and then they would gain another rend with Mind Razor. Anyway, this was a very, very stressful matchup. Now, I did a thing, a little mind trick thing I do. People often view terrain as a weakness, so I'm gonna hold up this right here. This is the terrain. This terrain doesn't really do much of anything. It has an aura around it, all right? An aura around it, 6 inches. And on a 50-50 coin flip, I can give an enemy unit a disease. That's enough that it makes people not too thrilled about being close to this thing. It's kind of tough. It has a 5-up save, a 5-up ward, 7 wounds, I think is what it has. But how do I use it? Well, if you've not played me before, one of the things I do is I place this thing smack dab in the middle as deep as I can, sort of. I place it within, how would you put it? Within pile-in distance of another unit. Pile-in distance of another unit so that my opponent thinks he can use my terrain against me. Again, it's just a mind trick, and my poor man Jason took a bit of the bait. His daughters had a unit that can fight twice. I wasn't too worried. He didn't get off Mind Razor, so that's the one thing. That's why I wasn't worried. He had the ability to run and charge. I had put this up enough where he looked at it and go, ha-ha, I'm going to charge it, and then I'm going to pile, and then when I attack again, I'm going to pile into your flies. And I was like, eh. It wasn't quite like that, but I was like, oh no, that would be so terrible. He killed the tree and then piled, got into my flies. He didn't get into my flies with the whole unit. Some of it was just out because, again, he had to stretch a bit. But at Rend 1, whatever thing he went into, I think he divided his attacks, killed neither one of the flies, and then I just went to work. And then the following turn, I just picked up the whole entire unit. I lost the tree. He lost an entire unit of witches, and I was pretty happy with the exchange. Jason was a really good player, actually. And again, the big difference here, it wasn't that my opponent was dumb. It was the lack of experience he had with playing into the list and possibly into me. Most people who know me and they're playing me are always examining my moves going, what are you trying to do? Because they're trying to examine what I'm doing past the game. But him and I have not played before. So he thought I was being a dummy, sticking this thing out, and oh well. So in the end, it was an incredibly tough fight because these sisters were just hard to kill. They have a formation, folks, that if the unit that you're in combat with has not attacked yet, they have a 5-up ward. Why? I don't know. Like, why? Why is this a rule they have? Why does the output machine glass cannon unit have a 5-up ward? I have no freaking clue, but they do. And I had to actually play very, very weirdly, and I was actually playing around his ability. So normally what you do is after your opponent attacks, you would pick the other unit that hasn't attacked yet. I was so leaning on my durability and his lack of rend, because most of his stuff is only rend 1, that what I did instead is after he attacked, I just attacked the unit with no wards to kill as much as I possibly could. And then he attacked me again before I did, and then I attacked that unit that had no wards. And then he was still able to attack because there was a lot of units in combat, because there's many, many units in Daughters of Cain. And that's how I dealt with it. I had the luxury of a 3-up save, a 5-up ward, and each one of these guys has 8 wounds. Combine that with the flat damage that they also kick out, I was able to lessen the impact of their attacks going into the next turns and so forth. And I just dissolved his units in the end. Again, though, this was a very, very close game. Jason played fantastically. Really tough. I almost got quasi-frustrated a little bit because he was rushing and I was just trying to understand what was happening because he was under a clock. I play with a clock all the time when I'm in a tournament, regardless of what army I'm playing. He was feeling the pressure of it because this is a very time-consuming army to play. And he started to rush without giving me the opportunity to necessarily react or understand what was happening and what he was rolling for. So unfortunately, I had to slow him down. It's like, whoa, I get you're under time, but I need to understand what you're doing. Yeah, so I understand what's been used and what hasn't, and what has what ran and what doesn't. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, but it was just tough. It was very stressful from that perspective because he was really under the clock. And I actually didn't think my man was going to be able to play under time. I thought he was going to run out of time by round 4. But Jason played a super tight game, still was very, very clear in the end, and only ran out of time on round 5 when he was already on objectives. So that wasn't too bad. I squeaked out this win against him through basic positionings and shenanigans and squeezed out a 62-56 win. Again, super, super close. Again, I didn't score my tactics till late in the game, and because of that, I left some points on the table, so to speak. All right, so day 2, Daughters of Cain. That was really hard. We were playing in Search and Slaughter. Now, Search and Slaughter is not one of those bad missions for me. Again, the missions I do not like or do not want to play against anyone, especially anyone with teleports, was Passing Seasons and Grasp of Thorns. As long as I wasn't playing an army that was super, super mobile or had teleports, I was okay-ish playing in those missions. But if they had those tools on hand, it was going to be an absolutely rough matchup. All right, so what happens? Shout out to Josh for being a meathead and putting Grasp of Thorns as the last round of this tournament. So, who do I play in round 5? Sabetti. Now, Sabetti is a regular here in the shop. He's a very, very good player, one of the best in Canada. He's coined the phrase "biggest piggest" more times than I would care to count. He's been on stream many times before as well. Super great guy, and honestly, don't tell him this, but very proud of what he's done gaming-wise, where he was and where he's at right now. Just absolutely phenomenal. But I wasn't going to say that to his face. Hell no. He was across the table from me, so obviously there was an incredible amount of trash talk at the table. And we had a good time of it. Before I get in round 5, any other little messages here? No? Okay, good. All right, so let's get to it. Sabetti was playing Seraphon. Now, that wouldn't have been all that bad, except we were playing in Grasping Thorns. So that, again, that's that mission that has the objectives in the corners. And he had that unit of KO dwarves, profiteers of whatever the heck busted crap that the designers made. I was in a bad place. So what do those dwarves do? It's basically a Code Right and 2 units of Thunders. The Code Right can teleport any friendly unit that is wholly within 9 inches of it across the table. That's right, friendly unit. For whatever reason, it's not restricted to the units that come inside its own regiment of renown. No. It's any friendly unit. So my man was able to teleport his Lizardman, which was great. So I am playing Grasp of Thorns. I'm playing into an army that has a fair amount of wounds. And I was playing, Grasp of Thorns and teleports. So this was going to go pretty darn badly. I try to do my same trick with the living plague, meaning reminding my opponent that if I charge, I give a disease to what I impact. But to Sabetti's credit, mostly to his army choice, he said, no, Lionel, you go first. Literally the only opponent that did that. Now, there's a big reason why he said for me to go first. Why is it? This reason, right here. No need to close in on it, Gaio, but the table in this mission is split into two halves. Why is that important? The lizardmen have this thing called an asterism. Real word, by the way. The asterism can reduce rend by 1 if they're wholly within their territory. Well, in this particular mission, half of the table was wholly within his territory. So not only was I facing this uphill battle with the objectives, not only was he able to teleport across the field, he was going to reduce my rend by 1 as well, because half the table was in his territory. Oh, did I also mention that those dwarves, when they shoot at a thing, can ignore wards or turn off wards on that unit? Hot dang. Hot dang. So I had made an error in retrospect because I misunderstood how he broke up his army. And as much as he tells me, he told me at the beginning, he didn't tell me at the beginning. I thought I was going to line up some disease things or some disease vectors. And he then informed me that they were actually 2 units of 10, not 1 unit of 20. And I was like, oh, I don't think I would have committed as hard or positioned as I did if I knew that ahead of time. But I digress. So what I'm saying, he's a cheating guy as well. That's right, Sabetti, you're a cheater. Long story short. All right, let's abbreviate this. I slug back and forth. I am losing this game. It is literally it. There really wasn't a moment where I had tempo, dice, whatever. That didn't really matter. It just, the advantages were all his. I could have, in retrospect, positioned my flies a little differently, just a touch differently, to kind of emphasize one flank, because he had favored one flank as well. So when he gave me turn, he thought the 2 units of Saurus that he had there were going to tie up whatever. Eventually, I just ate them all, but they did tie up for far longer and held for far longer than I thought. Which meant it really prevented me from scoring. Again, battle tactics wise, I didn't score any of my battle tactics, and that's actually what happened. He kicked the crap out of me 57-42. I scored 0 battle tactics in that matchup. My entire score was purely based on primary, and that was the problem. He had scored his battle tactics, and I just didn't. So you're already sensing a theme here. And again, sorry, Sabetti, fantastic job, even though you're cheating, son of a... But it was a great matchup. Really enjoyed my weekend, and it was absolutely fantastic that my final game was against a great guy. So really enjoyed the weekend. It was a blast. Again, maybe it was because I don't go to an enormous amount of events or haven't gone to a lot of events recently. My last event before this one was in Edmonton. So for me, this was just fun. I just really, really enjoyed it. It was a road trip down to St. Catharines, which is roughly about an hour-ish away, hour and a half, depending how fast you're moving in your vehicle. Made it a weekend of it, stayed at the hotel, just hang out with the guys. It was just a lot of fun. If you don't do a lot of tournaments, folks, I highly recommend that you reach out to a local community and do attend. One of the coolest things about the hobby are the people who play it. And obviously, regardless of where you're at, the community isn't perfect, but it is fantastic, generally speaking. And you are really depriving yourself of the fantastic experience of just friendship and good times playing other people. Again, absolutely love competitive play. And I've said this many, many times before. I'll say it again. Our area is blessed with a lot of great, phenomenal players, and I appreciate every one of them. So what did I learn from the event? Okay, so Gaio, my friend, let's go to list 2. So we're going to go to list 2, and list 2 has the adjustments I made. All right. Now, you're thinking that, oh man, intercept sucks and master the path is terrible. That's actually not true. I actually believe all battle tactics are actually good. It just depends on the type of army that you are. I'm all heroes, so scouting is terrible for me. But if you're Night Hunt, scouting's amazing. If you teleport, scouting's amazing. And guess what? The opponents I lost to both took scouting, both had teleports, both played the 2 missions that I had a hard time with and took advantage of me because of it. And both of them denied all my battle tactics. That was the common theme. When I played games, all my games were like super, super tight. And again, that's because of my battle tactic choices. So the very first thing I would do, because I hadn't downloaded this list, by the way. I had heard about it through the grapevine. Someone told me 10 Lords of Afflictions and 2 Harbingers, and I just built the list. What I'm about to tell you right now, might be something that if you download the list, the list will have already maybe taken this into consideration. I just found out about this more or less the hard way and through experience. So I'm gonna add a little bit more context to the choices instead of you just downloading it. So up on the screen right now, you'll notice that first off, battle tactics change. I took Restless Energy and Wrathful Cycles. As I was playing this army more and more, because now I've played a total of a whole 7 games with this list, Restless was just something I could have just done throughout the tournament. And scoring Restless would have been dead easy. Gaio, if you can go to Restless Energy, my friend. Let's see if I could get it up on my little screen. So Restless is, you complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if you scoop up an objective from your opponent. So take control of an objective that they controlled. That was something that was happening in every one of my games. And to think I could have been scoring 5 points and my opponent would have had no choice because they had to play the game and had to be on objectives. Man, take every one of my games that I lost by like 5 points. Wait a second, I no longer lose those games. So Restless Energy, not any big news. Restless is a very, very popular choice, but I think an extremely good choice with this type of aggressive mobile build is the point I'm trying to make. More importantly is number 2 of Restless, and that's Invasive Species. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if you control every objective that can be controlled within enemy territory. If there are no objectives within enemy territory, you complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if you control every objective that was controlled by your opponent at the start of your turn. So, long story short, that is typically you have to control 1 or 2 objectives. And again, often I could have easily have done that or was doing that. Against the Night Hunt player, I was controlling his objective, and that would have been every objective in his territory. That would have been another 5 points very, very easily. And all of a sudden now I go from losing that game by 5 to potentially winning that game by 5. And these are the choices that I realized after those tight games I was playing against all those opponents where I only won by 5 points or 6 points. I could have won far greater. And for those of you that are chasing the brass ring, so to speak, at a tournament and want to come up high, battle points are often a breaker. So your battle tactic choices, are really, really important. And if you want to hit those upper echelons of competitive, You need to choose your battle tactics really well, opposite of what I did. And this is the choices I went with. And then as I was playing, I was just realizing as I was playing, man, I should not have picked these battle tactics. I'm a dummy. So there it is. So Restless, I'm not going to look at the third layer Restless. It's basically something that happens if you're absolutely mop the floor with your opponent. And there really wasn't an opponent that I completely destroyed absolutely everything, really. So, I mean, just being able to score those two, those games, I could have easily increased by 5 to 10 points. And that would have meant a win or a win more, which would have pushed me up higher up the ranks because I just would have scored more. Yes, I would have encountered a tougher field because I would be playing people who played that won that many games, but I wasn't really all that uncomfortable playing into meta choices like KO and what have you. So, my bad. Learn from my mistake. First choice I would make, or first change I would make, would be battle tactics, and that would be to change from Restless, to Restless, change to Restless, and also second choice, Wrathful Cycles. Now, why Wrathful Cycles? This dovetails into the concept of scooping objectives, and you do have to be a little careful with Wrathful. Because to unlock the second layer of Wrathful, you have to be underdog. Almost always in every game I had played, I was underdog through the score. I was manipulating the score really, really quite hard. And because some of those games, I wasn't, like I said, scoring battle tactics, it meant my opponents were almost always ahead of me in scoring. So, sure, Lionel, in that case, but if you swap your battle tactics and now score harder, you might have a harder time becoming underdog. That is true, but I do control on whether I start on an objective or off of it. So I'll give up primary and play for the secondaries to kind of meet up for it, because the primaries don't go anywhere, and I could come back to the primaries pretty much any time, and they're always in the same spot. They don't move. I could have just swapped how I did it and unlock underdog. So first off, what is Wrathful Cycles? You basically score Wrathful Cycles at end of any round where you have more objectives than controlled than your opponent. This is in direct contradiction with that whole statement regarding playing off of the objective. So you do have to time it right. You could maybe forego Restless Energy to try again to manipulate your score. And you definitely have, what I like about Wrathful, especially because of the mobility of this list, I always feel like I'm not always in it because I can't go across the table, but I feel I have more control over my scoring because of the fact that I do have the ability to be here, beat face, and then move next round to score. It's not one or the other. It's one and then I can, as opposed to moving forward, making a charge, being completely out of position, and then I can't. So that's the difference. So I can manipulate how I score, I think, a lot better. And this is what I'm going to test in any case. I like the idea of Wrathful. Being able to score more is very, very easy, or control more is generally pretty easy with this list. So I can click off that. And then maybe still be under the score. If I'm not, I just go off primary, I give it up. Most opponents are so locked into the moment that they will play to their more basic urges and scoop up objectives, teleport to it, score higher, and then I'll score my Wrathful. Again, I think Wrathful is more of the skill involved in Wrathful is more manipulating your opponent's choices. It is a little convoluted, but what I do really like is I feel like I have more control. At the bare minimum, I can score 5. My opponent will not necessarily be able to control whether I control more than him, because typically this list goes really, really hard. So if I can get 2 off of Restless and 1 off of Wrathful without much effort, 15 points 15 points is just fine. And my opponents don't really have choice in denying me that other than sticking themselves and weathering my plagues, my crusading knights. I think that's a pretty sweet middle ground. I'm definitely not entering the situation where I'm scoring 0 battle tactics, where my opponents had complete control over how I scored it. So that would have been the choices that I'm thinking of making. If you think you have a better choice or an alternate choice, please comment on this video. I'd love to hear it. Another thing I did was change some of the enhancements. So instead of Rustfang, Gaio, if you could get up the dirge for me, I dropped Rustfang from the list because what I found out in the end is I didn't really need the extra rend, and I didn't want to sacrifice my Harbinger into combat to just be able to pull off this once per game ability. Now I could have moved the Rustfang over to a Lord of Change, a Lord of Afflictions, and a guy that's going to be involved in combat, and that would have been fine. But what I realized I needed more was scoring. These guys are 2 OC, and that's pretty darn good. But it dawned on me that I think the Carrion Dirge, the Carrion Dirge, it's an artifact. It says, pick up the 3 enemy units within 12, not wholly within, but within 12, and then subtract 3 from each target's control score for the rest of the turn. First off, it's rare that you have 3 units on an objective, but deducting 3, if they got 10 models and now they're down to 7, and I have maybe 4 flies, maybe I hold on to that objective all of a sudden. If they put an elite unit of 5 models on there and they go down to 2, and all of a sudden I can hold that with 2 flies, and deny their scoring, that seemed to me more impactful. Again, folks, I have not downloaded the list. I'm discovering this in real time at the event, and this is an after action report and what I have concluded afterward. This can all be solved already. Maybe some of you are like, yeah, of course, that's what the list already includes, Lionel, you meathead. Why didn't you just download it? Well, it's because I'm a meathead. I didn't download it, and I just wanted to fly by the seat of my pants. So I'm going to test out Carrion Dirge, and I think that will be an extremely viable choice. All right, so lastly, I want to shout out to Josh Akins, and I want to thumbs up his I told you so. He told me to play with Restless Energy, and I didn't. You're right. I was wrong. There you go. It's on video even. You can reverse and play to your heart's content, Josh. All right, so those are the tournaments. That was the event. I got nothing else to say, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this was informative in some shape, way, or form. I'm going to be working on this list. I'm going to try to go to another event. Maybe we'll do another breakdown again. And with all that out of the way, folks, I'm going to wish you all a fantastic afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you are. And again, get out to events. Hopefully you have a fantastic rest of the week. See ya.